All right, everyone, Anna here again. I apologize in advance if this video is a little bit long, but the topic I want to discuss is very delicate and controversial and can't really be condensed easily. I also apologize if it's a little shaky because I'm filming on my iPhone since my computer is acting up. Now, as many of you may know, last week at the Laugh Factory, Daniel Tosh, the comedian, made a joke about rape, and a woman in the audience shouted out that rape is never funny, to which he responded, wouldn't it be funny if she was raped by like 5 guys right now? Like, wouldn't that just be funny? She went home and blogged about it on Tumblr, and the internet exploded. People seem to be falling into about 2 camps on this. You have the people who say that it's his right as a comedian to make these jokes. We have no right to dictate how these jokes are made because it's freedom of speech, and that it's in fact the job of a comedian to bring up a situation that is uncomfortable and bring it to light and make us laugh at it so that we can then move on and discuss it and deal with it. Then you have the people who say that rape is not like any other controversial topic, that it's an incredibly painful experience forced onto a person by another person, specifically from a man to a woman, and that it's not only in poor taste, but that he has no right to make light of such a painful and awful situation. So this is something that's being discussed a lot, and in my group of friends, I've been running into a lot of resistance when I talk to my male friends about this. These are people who I truly respect and love, and who I tend to agree with on a lot of different things, and who, stand by me when it comes to women's rights. But when it comes to this idea of whether or not rape jokes are okay, we're really clashing on it. And I'm feeling a very deep sense of betrayal when I talk to these people, and a very great sense of pain, which I've been trying to work through and figure out why I'm feeling that and how can I address it. I've also been finding this with a lot of my other female friends who I've talked to about this, that they have been encountering the same resistance when they talk to their male friends. So I wanted to sort of get into this in a way that would foster understanding between the two of us. To begin with, yes, no one is saying that Daniel Tosh does not have a legal right to make that joke. If they are saying it, they don't understand our Constitution, and that's an issue that they probably have to deal with. However, whether or not it was right is something that's completely different. Now, we all know that rape is a very delicate topic, and one thing that needs to be brought to light is how endemic in our culture it is. Rape is committed every 2 minutes, for the record, if you check the statistics, and 1 in 6 women will be the victims of attempted or completed rape at some point in their lives, which means that if you know more than 6 women, chances are you know someone who's a victim of rape. The fact that 5 out of 6 of us will never experience rape, however, does not mean that it's not a huge part of our lives. All of us have to walk around with the knowledge in our heads that we could be the next victim. And we have to be constantly vigilant and aware of this, and sort of paranoid, in fact, in order to prevent this from happening. The only tools that are given to us in order to prevent this are instructions on what not to do, how not to make yourself a victim. Don't wear your hair long. It's too easy to grab onto and overpower you. Don't wear short skirts or things that make you easily accessible, because because rapists look for easy targets. So if you're someone who they can easily get at, once they have you cornered and overpowered, then you're going to be more likely to be a target. Don't walk alone at night. Watch your drink when you're out at a bar or a party in case anyone slips a roofie in it, things like that. And these are things that men will never have to deal with on the same level, because this is something that is predominantly committed by men against women. Only 3% of rape victims are men, and many of their assailants are also men. Women can be the assailant in rare cases, but it's extremely rare, and so it's something that we have to live with, this constant fear that is internalized, that we're taught by society, that men will never know. So it's going to invoke sort of a stronger reaction, because this is something that directly affects us in a way that it doesn't directly affect men. The problem with what we're taught through this, it doesn't mean that we walk down the street going, he's a rapist, he's a rapist, he's a rapist, and being constantly afraid, but it does mean it's in the back of our minds. And the problem with these teachings is that it assumes that the rapist is a stranger. Now, 1/3 of rapes are committed by strangers in dark alleys and hiding behind bushes and things like that. 2/3 of rapes are committed by somebody that the victim knew. And this throws an entirely different set of factors into this, because it means that we have to be constantly on alert around everyone. Now, this doesn't mean that when I'm around my male friends, coworkers, family members, etc., I assume that they're gonna, rape me the first chance they get. I count myself lucky to know very wonderful men who never put me in situations where I have to question that. But the minute that something is said that makes us feel uncomfortable or wary, the first place our mind is going to jump is, am I safe in this situation? And are they a danger to me? Especially when it comes to sexual assault, because this is something that we're very aware of happening to us. So as a male, when not only do you not have to deal with this, but you also have to be aware of the fact that things you say might trigger that sort of reaction in us. That if you say something that makes us uncomfortable, or do something that makes us uncomfortable, we're going to be questioning then, are you a danger to me? So when Daniel Tosh makes a joke that says, wouldn't it be funny if this woman is raped, not only is it offensive, but the woman sitting in the audience is all of a sudden questioning her own safety in this situation. Does he really think that it's funny? Would he think it was okay if this happened to her? It doesn't matter if he would or not. This is the questions that he's bringing up in her mind, and perhaps other women in the room as well. And not only does he think this, but every single person who's watching this, what are they thinking? Because words have power, and as a comedian, he should know this. That it's not that someone is going to say, well, Daniel Tosh said it's okay, so I'm going to go out and rape someone. But when it's repeated that rape is funny and not something to be taken seriously, this is what gets into people's psyche, and this is what they start to believe. So not only do we have to then be concerned about the stranger in the bushes, but the guy sitting next to us at the next table who might have heard this and said, hey, yeah, that's pretty funny. And somehow that validated his own desires to force himself on a woman. And now that's another thing that's important to understand, that rape is not about sexual desire. If it was just about sexual desire, a rapist would do what any normal person would do. They would try and woo the woman. If she says no, they'd go find someone else who does want to have sex with them. And it's not just about forcing someone up against a wall and sticking your penis in them. Rape is about exerting your power over a woman, about saying that my yes is more important than your no. So when you coerce a woman into sleeping with you, when you manipulate someone when they're too drunk to say no, when they're drugged, that also constitutes rape, because it takes away the power of a woman to say no and to exert her own power in this situation. And when those tactics are used, it's saying that what I want is more important than what you want. And it's a way of putting a woman in her place and saying, let me have what I want. So when somebody defends Daniel Tosh's right to make this joke, well, you're not endorsing rape, but you are endorsing something called rape culture. And rape culture is the idea that this sort of power over women is okay, up to and including rape, although many people don't actually go that far. So if you don't believe me that this exists, all you have to do is walk down the street with a woman and see what happens when she walks past a group of guys. They're going to start making comments about her body. They're going to start whistling at her. My favorite, hey you, which basically takes away even her validity as a human being and reduces her to being nothing more than an animal that you can just whistle at. A lot of times, you know, if a woman walks past and doesn't say anything, they're going to keep doing it to try and get her attention, to try and force their attentions on her. Or if she says no, they're going to call into question why. And instead of them having to justify why they have this right to do this to a woman, she has to justify why they don't have the right. So it's this idea that men have this power over women. And that's what rape culture is. And so when you say that Daniel Tosh's right to make this joke trumps this woman's right and my right and any other woman who says that they're made uncomfortable by this, our right to feel safe, not just unoffended, but safe in a room, what you're doing is endorsing this idea of rape culture, that his desire to make someone laugh and someone's desire to laugh at this joke is more important than my feeling of safety. And when you do that, when you endorse that, even without meaning to, what you're saying is that I can't trust you necessarily to respect my right to say no. You're calling into question your own integrity in this situation, and you're making me say, okay, well, if I was thrown into this situation with you, would you respect my right to say no? Once again, this isn't saying that every man who supports his right is going to rape someone at some point, but it does take away a little bit of my trust with you and my feeling of security. Because, as I said, words have power. And as a comedian, Daniel Tosh needs to know this. As a video blogger, I know this. I take the great time in trying to choose my words wisely so that I don't accidentally convey a message that I wasn't intending to convey. And obviously, you're not responsible for anyone's reaction to what you say. You can't satisfy everyone, and you can't not offend everyone. But it's something that you have to think about very carefully, especially when you're discussing a topic as delicate and complicated as this, and especially when it's something that causes extreme pain to people. Because as a friend of mine put it, when she was talking about why this offends her so deeply and why it's different from other jokes that cause offense, and her own personal experiences with rape, she said, you know, when you make an offensive joke, you want people to say, ha, yeah, I've been there, and to sort of laugh at the situation and expose the situation for what it is, whether it's a stereotype or a problem with our society. Rape victims usually don't want to say, ha, yeah, I've been there. They usually don't want to laugh about this thing that happened to them. And when you choose to make a joke that mocks the victim as opposed to mocking the rapist, you're not exposing a situation, you're not giving it any less power. You're not sort of pointing out how stupid this person's mindset is. When you're mocking the victim, you're taking away more power from them. You don't need to take away the power from a victim. You know why? That already happened to them. It was called being raped. So you have to think very, very carefully when you make comments and jokes about this. What am I saying here? Because this is something that affects a huge portion of our society. You know, when 50% of our population or more is women, and we're the ones who have to live with this fear every day, and when 1 in 6 of us actually has experienced this, that's something to consider. And it's thrown around a lot as a word to take away the power that women have. Personally, when I make my video blogs and I post them, every single video that generates heat is going to get a comment of what they'd like to do to me sexually in order to take away my voice and my power. So it's something that's very, very prevalent in our society and that we don't like to think about, because then we have to think about what am I saying with this? Am I condoning this? Is this really something that happens in our society? And when you have a male-driven society, when you have a society that's dominated by males, where the majority of the government is male, when they're passing laws that limit women's rights because they're not seeing it from a woman's perspective, they're seeing it from their own, you don't need to take away any more power from women. We're already fighting to regain any sort of equal footing, which we don't currently have. And it just makes it that much harder to prosecute a rapist, because when the people who are delivering justice aren't people who experience this fear and shame and humiliation, when they don't understand the problem, when they see that this could be an accusation that's thrown at them, they're going to look for what the other side of the story is. What did she do to invite this into her life? You know, they're going to treat it like it's a conflict as opposed to one person overpowering and forcing something on another. For example, my sister has a friend who was sexually assaulted by someone at her school, and the way that the school dealt with it was to sit them down and hold a mediation session between the two of them, as if somehow she had an equal part in this confrontation. Women don't have an equal part in this. We can't stop being women, and whether or not we stop dressing the way that we currently dress, whether I wear a low-cut shirt or a short skirt, whether I invite a guy up to my apartment for a drink, that doesn't give anyone the right to say that I was asking for it. And the problem with rape is that it's not necessarily committed by somebody who's hiding in the shadows. And when it's committed by somebody that you know, that means that everyone that you're trying to get on your side also knows this person. And it's not just that you misjudge this person, it's that they misjudge this person as well. And they're not going to want to admit to that. So it's going to be a lot harder to go out and prosecute this person and bring them to justice. 3% of all rapists do time for what they've done, and the rest of them tend to walk free. And that's a pretty horrific statistic. And I can speak from experience on this when it comes to sort of brushing it off and wanting to look for the other side, because I have a friend who confessed to me that she was molested by a member of her family, and my immediate response, which I am very ashamed to say, was, okay, what's the other side of this story here? And there is no other side of this story. It doesn't matter what she did, and she didn't do anything. She was a child. But it doesn't matter what she did or didn't do. What matters is that his right to exert his power of yes over her was considered more valid than her right to say no. And so we really need to think about this, and we need to create discussion, and I hope that's what comes of this, because whatever happens with Tosh, whether he gets fired or not for his horrible comment, we need to discuss, why are people so okay with just brushing this off? And why are other people so upset about this? And where do we find middle ground on this? And how do we use this to come to a place where rape victims are no longer being blamed for the violence committed against them? And where it is okay to make a joke about it because we're on equal footing, because it's being discussed in a way that we can joke about it in a way that's not going to take away more power from the powerless. So thanks for listening. And sorry if that was a little bit unclear. I'm doing my best to sort of deal with my own emotions about this issue as well. And I hope that we can come to some sort of discussion about this and really find a way to make this not such a huge and prevalent problem in our society, and bring women to a place where they're more on par with men when it comes to terms of rights and things like that. So thank you.